Welcome back to Intermediate Programming Topics. This is video 3 in our series. My name is John Duane. Today we are going to continue with our user interface example. Last time we had constructed our Windows form and placed a combo box control on it as well as a progress bar. Now the way we use them, the combo box and the progress bar, the way we use them together is via a new type of event handling procedure. In the first video series, I introduced the concept of event handling procedures. Back then, the event was always the click of a command button control by the user. But this is only one kind of event. There are maybe close to 100 different events that the Windows operating system can listen for. Each control has its own set of events. For example, the command button also has a double click event. You could write your program to do one thing for a single click and another thing for a double click. So there you would have two event handling procedures, one for each event. The event we're going to focus on is connected to the combo box control. Now that event is called the selection changed event. So the operating system here is listening for when the value property of the combo box changes. When that happens, the event fires and the operating system, which is always listening, hears it. If an event handling procedure has been written for that event, the firing of the event will trigger execution of the procedure. In our program, the selection of an item in the combo box changes the value property and the selection changed event fires. Our event handling procedure will display in a label control on the value of the combo box. It'll display the value of what was selected in the combo box, and it will update the progress bar as long as the progress bar is not full. Alright, so let's take a look at that. So we've got our code in the interactive development environment. Here's the form itself, but let's look at the code behind. So here's the event handling procedure that I'm talking about right here. So it starts off with the name of the combo box, which is CBO topics, and then change is the event. So that's how it's titled. So here's what happens. So once something is selected in the combo box, this line of code runs. So me, the form, and then the label on the form called label selection, we're going to change the value of the caption property in that label to me CBO topics value. Right? Okay, so here's the combo box and value. Value is going to hold whatever was selected in the combo box. So whatever was selected in the combo box now appears as a label. Next thing, int counter, which is an integer variable, is going to be incremented by 10. Alright, so that happens. Now we're going to test to see if we've reached the limit of the combo box. Now the properties of the combo box, min and max, that I talked about before, come into play here, but especially max. So let's take a look at the back at the form itself, and here's the progress bar. Let's look at the properties. So here min is set to 0, right? So there's 0, and then max is set to 100. Alright, so that's important. Alright, so let's go back, look at the code again. What I'm doing here is I'm testing to see if int counter, which starts off at 0 and then gets incremented by 10 every time this event fires, whether that counter has reached the value of the max yet. And the max, as I just pointed out there, was 100. If it's greater than 100, then we're going to change that label to finished. If it hasn't reached 100 yet, then we're going to update the value of the progress bar to the value of the counter, of int counter. So the first time the event fires, it's going to be 10. The progress bar will display only 10% being filled. So then every time we go and select something in the combo box, this event will fire, int counter will grow by 10, and the progress bar will become 10% longer than it was before. And once we get to the very end, we won't be able to increment the progress bar anymore, and we'll have a label that says finished. So that's kind of how this is going to work, and this all runs off of this event handling procedure. Now we kind of skipped over this point earlier in the last video when we were setting up the combo box, so I want to talk about one other event handling procedure before we actually kind of run this program. The Windows form itself is a control, the entire form. Let's go back to it. This whole form is a control. And as a control, it has events that go with it. One of those events, called initialize, fires when the form is loaded into memory and displays on the screen. I often attach an event handling procedure to this event that contains all the form setup code. In this case, it loads the menu items into the combo box. We kind of showed that before. Let's look at that again. So here's that event handling procedure. User form is the name of the form, and initialize is the event. So when that event fires, all these menu items are added to the combo box. And then we also set some default values. Int counter, I set that to 0, so we're going to start all over again when the form pops up. And the progress bar value is going to equal int counter, basically 0. So that'll be at its, it'll basically show no progress at all. Now the last event handling procedure we're going to use is for the event that fires when the workbook is opened. Alright, so when we actually open the Excel file, there is an event that fires. And we'll find that up here. This module called this workbook represents the workbook object. If we double click that, here's the event. It's called open. So this event fires when we actually open the file. And what I want to happen when the file is opened is for this little bit of code to run. And basically it is user form 1, so that's the form we've created, and I want it to display. And so the way you do that is with this method called show. So very simple event handling procedure, but very nice. There's lots of things that you might do with this event handling procedure, and they would all have to do with setting defaults or setting opening values, whatever you would want to do when your Excel workbook opens. And in my case, I just want to show the form. Okay, well that's all the code we have to write, and it's not all that much code. But you'll notice that this thing is going to do quite a bit. Well, here's the last event handling procedure. This is a button click event, as we've seen several times before, and here we're just going to unload the form. Alright, so there we go. So let's run this thing and you'll see how it works. So first let's actually close the file. No, don't save. We'll just leave it. Alright, so here we're going to open the file. And that first event handling procedure just ran. The workbook open event fired, and it executed the code userform1.show. So here we go. Here's our form. Here's our combo box. Here's our progress bar. Combo box looks empty, but behind the scenes, when this form was rendered and opened onto the screen, it filled it with menu items. You don't see them yet, but you'll see them when we pull down the menu by clicking that arrow. So let's click the first one, variables, and variables appears as our label, and the progress bar is incremented by 10%. Let's pick another one. Data types, It's moving along. That progress bar is getting longer as we click more and more events, or more and more topics. Each time we click a topic, the selection changed event fires and increments that integer variable, which in turn increases the value property of the progress bar. And now we've gotten to the end. I've clicked 10 topics, so now we're at the end. Let's see what happens when I click the 11th topic. User interface. It says finished. This progress bar doesn't change. It's at the end. So that's pretty cool. I love the progress bar. It's a great way to show the progress of your program to the user so that he or she is not concerned that the program has become unresponsive. All right, so let's wrap up. In this demonstration, we wrote a program that shows how to use the combo box and the progress bar controls. We spent a fair amount of time talking about events. They're critical to understand when you're using forms in your program. We showed how to attach procedures to the events called event handling procedures, and these things will make your program do things based on what happens with your forms. Next time we'll write a similar program in C# to show the different syntax and also to show the similarities between a modern general purpose programming language and this VBA program, which basically goes back to the 80s with Visual Basic 6.0. So very interesting stuff. Hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please subscribe to this video series. Write comments about anything that wasn't clear. I'll definitely respond to them. And we'll see you next time.